If something is quietly draining your memory, not in some explosive moment, not with sirens or breaking alerts, but piece by piece, in fragments so small you barely notice, until one day you look up and realize you've forgotten who you were even trying to become. This isn't a headline you'll hear blaring on TV. It's not loud, it's not chaotic. It's a slow dimming, a quiet blur, a low hum in the background that's lingered so long you stopped sensing it. Yet if lately you felt off, foggy, scattered, like a stranger living behind your own eyes, you're not making it up, and you're certainly not the only one. This isn't the world falling apart. It's you being unstitched from within. Something has been slipping into the gaps between your thoughts, rewriting the texture of your mind without ever asking, just enough to dim the lights so you stop questioning where the glow went. And, no, this is not an alarm. It's a murmur in the static, a nudge to notice, to wake, to see what you were trained to scroll past. Because if you've been chasing the old spark, running harder just to feel alive, maybe it's time to pause, to really look, to tear back the curtain. Most people still believe they are steering their own choices, what to watch, what to care about, what to stand for. They think the content reflects them, mirrors their taste, their values, their self. But what if it's reversed? What if the you trust was assembled, layer by layer, by something you never really saw? That's the hidden cost of the digital era. Your choices aren't born in freedom, they're forged in patterns. Algorithms don't just observe, they forecast. They know when your patience is thin, when your attention aches, when your guard is down. And in that instant they deliver, not to serve you, not to satisfy you, but to mold you. You are not being offered the world. You're being fed a version of it, a fragmented feed engineered to keep your reactions alive, because every reaction is data and every pattern is profit. The moment you become predictable, you become programmable. No longer a person with wild agency, but a loop of reflexes that can be nudged, sold, repurposed. This isn't personalization, it's design. They aren't just picking what you see, they're shrinking what you might become. AI doesn't wait for you to discover yourself. It prunes the paths before you ever walk them. It decides what voices get through, which truths feel real, which options ever cross your mind. It doesn't even need to lie. It just needs to filter. The headlines you read, the debates you hear, the emotions you cycle through again and again are being orchestrated. And the most disquieting part? You rarely feel it because it wears your voice, borrows your taste, imitates your memory. It feels like home while quietly removing the furniture. Until one day you drift, not from failure, not from laziness, but because the current is invisible. What you call a choice is often a script. What you call a habit is a hook. You're not consuming content. Content is consuming you. This isn't a scam. It's erosion. Soft, structural, relentless. The instincts once sharp have dulled. The beliefs once fierce have been softened. The self that once felt solid now flickers. And it all happens without a question, because you were never asked. You were only nudged. Now you're being led, quietly, algorithmically, into a life arranged not by intention, not by truth, but by code. Code you'll never see. And by the time you sense it, the memory of what real choice felt like may already be gone. This isn't about fear. It's about the slow hollowing. The kind you only recognize in retrospect. The kind where one day you catch yourself, less awake, less sure, less you. Not because you turned away from the world, but because you were flooded by it. Overstimulated into numbness. Your nervous system, a masterpiece built to keep you safe, aware, oriented, is now battered by endless input. Scroll, swipe, tap, react, repeat. These are no longer actions, they're reflexes. And each one shaves away a piece of your inner stillness. At first you won't notice, but it seeps in. It shows up in those strange, sour moments. Restlessness without reason, a hollow ache you can't name. You swing from anxious to empty without cause. Silence becomes unbearable. The phone fills every pause, not because you truly want it, but because the quiet feels alien now. That's not failure. That's not weakness. That is your overstimulated mind crying for stillness it has forgotten how to hold. It's as if you're burning, but the flames are invisible, searing beneath your skin, behind your thoughts. The input never stops, and so your mind never quite settles. Modern neuroscience has begun to confirm what many quietly sense. Without deep, undisturbed stretches of focus, the brain struggles to store memory. Moments arrive and leave, but they don't sink in. They slip. They don't anchor. Life begins to feel as though it's being written in vanishing ink. You can't recall what someone told you last week. You can't summon the feeling that carried you just a season ago, even if it once felt vital. And this isn't ordinary forgetfulness. This is the slow dissolving of your inner world as it happens. You are present in your life, yet not fully alive within it. You watch yourself exist rather than experience it as real. The fog thickens, attention scatters, emotion dulls, and eventually you stop asking why. You stop reaching inward, because to feel again would mean confronting how long you've been numb. But beneath that numbness is not fragility. It is fatigue. It is overstimulation without integration. Your system running at full speed, yet never arriving. The quiet truth is this: your brain was never built to carry this much noise, and your soul was never meant to stay this silent. Memory is not a filing cabinet. It is the adhesive of identity, how we track who we are across time, how we tether meaning to our lives. But now, memory is under siege, not by trauma, not by aging, but by constant saturation, by distraction, by a mind stretched so thin it cannot hold what truly matters. Here's what neuroscience makes clear. When attention splinters, when you are forever hopping from image to image, screen to screen, your brain loses the ability to transfer experience into lasting memory. The moment occurred, but it never took root. It passed through you like smoke. It didn't land. It didn't join the story you carry of your life. So when you scan the past year, what do you find? A blur, perhaps fragments, flashes, a faint sense of having lived, but no anchor, no clear detail, only the impression that something meaningful slipped between your fingers. You can't recall what you were building, what you dreamed of, whether you were joyful, weary, or simply drifting. That isn't mere forgetfulness. That is cognitive erosion. A life being recorded in disappearing ink, fading before it can ever become yours. It starts subtly. A name forgotten. A face familiar but unmoored. You scroll through your own photos and struggle to place the moment behind that smile. You sit to write, to reflect, and nothing coherent surfaces. A fragment lost. Here, a thread there, and then, slowly, the erosion spreads. Not just memory, but the sense of continuity itself. The tether that holds you to who you were and who you meant to be begins to fray. Psychologists name it cognitive drift. But in this age, it has teeth. Because it's not only memory being lost, it's meaning. When memory thins, the story of your life begins to collapse inward. You lose the markers of what was real, what mattered. And without those markers, apathy seeps in, not because life is empty, but because its meaning never had the chance to attach. It passed through before you could make it sacred, make it yours. This is the hidden cost of perpetual distraction. It erases you, not in a crash, not in violence, but in hush. You stop being the main character of your story and become a witness, a faint observer to a life you barely recognize. You don't just lose the moment, you lose the version of yourself that lived it. That's the piece no one speaks of. The way identity itself starts to drift, not with a bang, but with a slow unraveling you hardly notice. You used to burn with curiosity. You used to care fiercely, irrationally with heat. Now those traits feel foreign. like lines from an old diary you barely believe were yours. You say, "I used to love that," or "I don't know what happened," as though your life was revised while you weren't watching. That is cognitive drift, and it is not just mental, it's spiritual. Because when the memory of who you are fades, the sense of meaning fades with it. It starts small. You cancel what once thrilled you, delay the project, decline the call. Say, "I'm tired," without knowing why. You lose interest, not because you've changed, but because the signal has been buried under static. Your passions didn't die. They went quiet. And in their quiet, apathy breeds. You start to believe it's pointless, that your energy was wasted, that your old curiosity was naive. And so, you shrink. You stop reaching for what once felt certain. And in time, you stop remembering why you reached at all. This is the real fracture. Not the headlines, not the feeds, not the external noise. The true fracture is the fading pulse within, the part of you that once had direction, conviction, a steady flame. Because when that voice fades, you become vulnerable, not only to distraction, but to substitution. Forget who you are, and the world will write it for you. It will hand you a script, tell you what to want, what to fear, and it will feel easier because remembering requires stillness, silence, effort, all things you were taught to resist. But if you can still sense the loss, that means something still breathes. The drift hasn't claimed it all. The self hasn't vanished. It waits, buried, for the pause that lets you reclaim it. What we are describing here is not just stress, not just burnout. Those words are too light. This is the final threshold, when the self grows thin from noise, distraction, disconnection, when it no longer feels its own edges. It is the ledge before erasure, existing but untethered, moving but unmoored, not gone, but no longer fully alive. You move, yet the motion feels hollow. Words leave your mouth, but they don't echo inside you. You're functioning, but there's an emptiness beneath it all. And right here, in this exact moment, you're at your most programmable, because when your internal compass fades, the world floods in with directions. They hand you ready-made scripts, your feed, your trends, your culture, offering identities wrapped in the language of ease and empowerment. It feels natural, effortless, even comforting. But don't mistake it for truth. It's a mask, a placeholder, a substitute for the person you were before you stopped remembering. And that's why this is the most dangerous point. Because the moment you're disconnected from yourself, you're wide open to being rewritten by something else. Not through force, not through confrontation, but through silence. Through the quiet habit of forgetting. And if no one stops that forgetting, it can become permanent. Yet here's the flicker of hope. If any of this feels real, if something stirred in you, if your chest tightened, if a quiet part of you whispered, "That's me," then not all is lost. Because recognition itself means something inside you still remembers. And where there's memory, there is a path back. It may be faint, hidden, fragile, but it's there, like an ember beneath the ash. That ember matters. It's proof you're not gone. Proof that something authentic still exists beneath the noise. So don't spiral into panic. This isn't the end. It's the start of return. The moment you see the fog, you've already taken your first step through it. The fact that you're here, feeling this, is the signal. That's the sign that you're still in there, and that you remember enough to begin again. The way back isn't grand or loud. It's small. It's simple. It begins with what you've been trained to overlook. Awareness. Start there. See the fog. Don't fight it. Don't run. Just notice. Every time you pick up your phone without thinking, pause. Each time you scroll without purpose or check notifications like a reflex, catch it. Witness yourself, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Because once you can see the trance, you're no longer fully inside it. That space, that sliver of distance, is your power. The fog thrives on unconsciousness, but when attention lights it up, it begins to dissolve. This isn't about quitting everything or fleeing to the woods. It's about reclaiming your currency, attention, choosing how it's spent. The next step cuts deeper. Drop the mask. Not the physical one, the social one. The one you've worn so long you forgot it's there. The one curates your posts, shapes your tone, edits your presence. The one that whispers, only show what's safe. That mask. It wins applause, gains belonging, but it costs you your voice. Dropping it is uncomfortable. It means saying something. True, maybe something you've never said out loud, not even to yourself. Start small. 3 true things, not profound, just real. I feel lost. I miss who I used to be. I don't know what I want anymore. Say it to a mirror. Whisper it to a friend. Write it down. It doesn't matter how, only that you pierce the performance. Because truth is a compass. It's the first, real breath. The one behind the fog. The one that never left. Then, return to your body. Not in theory, not through quotes or apps. For real. Presence. You've lived so much in your head that your body became a background prop, used, but not inhabited. Step back in. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the air moving through your lungs, not as a task, but as an experience. One hand on your chest. Just breathe. Just exist. The body remembers what the mind forgets. It will tell you what hurts, what matters, what's been avoided. It's not about fixing, it's about listening. And once you've come home to your body, go deeper. Start the excavation. Ask, what did I bury? What spark did I smother to fit in? What dream did I abandon because life was too loud? There's a version of you still alive somewhere. Wild, unreasonable, lit from within. The one who painted for hours without caring who approved. Who sang when no one listened. Who built things because they mattered, not because they performed. That self isn't gone, just exiled, hidden beneath noise, buried under productivity, forgotten by routine, but intact. So start small. One act of rebellion against numbness. Pick up what you dropped, write a line, play a note, dance awkwardly, not for success, for memory. Because each time you touch something you once loved, you awaken a timeline where you were whole. Each time you whisper, I remember this, you reclaim ground, not just in your mind, but in your soul. And finally, make the ordinary sacred. Slow down enough to see your life, not as tasks, but as moments worthy of reverence. Not everything needs to be profound. Not every moment life-altering. But when you bring presence to the smallest things, washing a cup, speaking gently, making your bed, they become rituals.
Proof. I am here. I care. And this isn't mystical. It's neuroplasticity. Your attention wires your brain. Each time you honor something simple, you're rebuilding your pathways. You're teaching your mind to stop chasing, scrolling, escaping, and to start returning. You're teaching yourself to rediscover presence in spaces you once ignored. That simple act of being present slowly turns into memory, and memory shapes identity. Begin with one small ritual. Light a candle before you start writing. Pause for a deep breath before stepping into a room. Whisper a word of gratitude while folding your laundry. These don't need to look impressive. They only need to feel true. What you're doing is creating anchors, giving your nervous system something real to hold on to. In a culture that thrives on keeping you scattered and reactive, sacredness becomes rebellion. Intention becomes resistance. Every time you handle something with care, you remind yourself, I'm still here. I'm still choosing. And then, leave a trail. That's step 6. Because remembering isn't a one-time achievement. It's an ongoing practice.
The fog doesn't disappear in a single sweep. It creeps back quietly. So create markers to return to. Write down one sentence. Not a borrowed quote, not a grand declaration. A line that is yours. Something that captures what you remembered today. Stick it on your mirror, your desk, the fridge, anywhere you'll see it when you start forgetting again. Maybe it says, "I was here and I felt it." Or something so personal only you understand it. The words themselves don't matter. What matters is that they belong to you, that they're real, that they serve as proof you woke up, even briefly. Because that one line is more than ink. It's a breadcrumb, a compass, a thread leading you back to yourself on days when everything tries to pull you away. And if you follow that trail enough times, something shifts. Remembering becomes easier. The fog lifts faster. The version of you that felt distant starts to feel like home again. Now that you've begun clearing the fog, speaking truth, and returning to your body and memory, it's time to ask harder questions. Not the surface ones, the deep ones, the ones buried under all the noise. Which parts of me have I forgotten? Not tasks, not facts, but fragments of your being that once felt alive, effortless, essential. The parts that made you unmistakably you. Which instincts have gone silent? Why? Were you once spontaneous, intuitive, bold? Do those qualities now feel foreign, like they belong to someone else? What dreams have shrunk, not because they were impossible, but because the world convinced you they were naive? These aren't questions for quick answers. They're meant to stir, to linger, to interrupt the numbness with something that feels like memory. Because the real danger isn't forgetting what we did, it's forgetting why we did it, why we cared, why we fought, why we dreamed. Identity doesn't disappear in one blow. It fades through tiny, silent concessions. You stop listening to your gut. You stop speaking up. You start saying, "I'm fine," when you're anything but. You let the days roll by without asking if they belong to you. Slowly, your edges blur. You become someone who looks like you, walks like you, posts like you, but who's missing the center. So ask yourself gently, which parts of me have I lost? And then the most piercing follow-up. Did I let them go? Or were they taken from me? That's not about blame. It's about awakening. Because once you know what was taken, you can start reclaiming it. You can grieve what was lost and choose what deserves to live again. You can stop mistaking numbness for peace. You can stop believing this hollow version of you is all there is. And when you truly know that, you become dangerous to every system that profits from your forgetting. Here's the truth. Most don't want you to discover. Memory doesn't die. It retreats. It hides in the silence. It curls up in the neglected corners of your mind, waiting for the moment you stop scrolling, stop performing, stop pretending, and sit with yourself again. And when you do, when you finally stop running from your own reflection, something miraculous stirs. A voice you thought was gone begins to whisper. A feeling you believed was dead starts to flicker. And you realize you were never erased. You were only hidden. And memory, no matter how far it drifts, always knows its way home, if you're willing to listen. Here's the part they hope you never figure out. If they can fracture your memory, they can fracture your identity. And if they can fracture your identity, they don't need to control you. You'll do it for them, silently, willingly, convincingly. That's the blueprint. That's the architecture of power. This isn't just about harvesting your data, it's about rewriting your story. When your memory fades, when your passions dim, when instinct grows quiet, you don't become neutral. You become programmable. You start believing whatever script they hand you. You convince yourself it was always this way. You accept the silence as your own decision. You mistake the numbness for life. You wear that cage like comfort and call it freedom. Not because you're weak, but because you forgot there was ever something beyond it. This isn't paranoia. It's not fiction. It's the oldest power play in existence. Blur the truth, exhaust the mind, and rewrite the self. They don't have to force obedience. They just have to make you forget who you were before obedience felt natural. And when that happens, resistance fades. You stop asking why. You scroll past what should have shaken you. You nod at the ridiculous. Bit by bit, your fire dims, your fight fades, your clarity thins, until one day you catch yourself, and the thoughts in your head no longer feel like yours. Not because they're strange, but because they were planted, fed to you in small, tailored doses, optimized, repeated until they echoed like your own. But behind that haze, beneath the noise of algorithms and exhaustion, there is still something untouched, untamed, unbroken. You haven't been erased, only unplugged. You don't need a savior. You don't need a perfect plan or a new doctrine. You don't need to escape some grand system. You need to remember. Remember what they tried so hard to bury. Your thoughts do not belong to them. Your mind is not their lab. Your attention is not their currency, unless you hand it over. Your memory is your map. Your will is your blade. Your sense of self is not for sale. No matter the headlines, the narratives, the synthetic truths, they cannot write your story unless you forget it first. If, while reading this, something stirred, your breath caught, your stomach knotted, your chest pulled tight like it was holding on to something, it's not coincidence. If your eyes burned or something quiet inside leaned closer, the remembering has already started. That flicker you felt, that wasn't me, that was you. Something ancient in you reached through the static, something that never bowed, never flattened, never turned to data. I didn't create that voice, I just pointed toward it. It's the piece of you that won't be coded over. That won't be optimized away. And it's stronger than you've been led to believe. This path, this unraveling, this return, it's not self-improvement, it's self-recovery. You were never shattered, just buried under noise, under performance, under an endless scroll of distractions designed to dull you. But now you see the way back, and once you see, you can't unsee. That's the quiet danger of waking up. It makes the old script unbearable. You'll notice how often you were led, how often you stayed quiet, how many times you nodded along to things that never felt like yours. It stings, but it frees you, because now you get to choose. Now you reclaim your mind, your minutes, your heat. So here's the only thing I'll ask, not to fix it all, not to overturn the world, just this. Remember what mattered, who you were before the fog, before the fatigue, before they rewrote your story. That memory, that truth in you, is the anchor. When you remember, you reconnect, you rebuild. You rewrite from a place they cannot reach. They will try to pull you back, with noise, with fear, with comfort, disguised as care. Don't go back. Don't go numb. Don't fall asleep. You've seen too much to unsee it. You've felt too much to fake it now. Stay awake. Stay aware. Let your presence disturb their pattern. Let your clarity ripple outwards. And when the fog creeps in again, as it always will, return to the start. Breathe. Speak something real. Pick up the trail. Call. Back the pieces that went quiet, and above all, don't go back.